Your source for everything paranormal. Para-X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet and merry part, bright the cheeks and warm the heart. For tread the circle thrice about, to keep unwelcome spirits out. Abide within the law you must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold laws you should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. These 8 words the read fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron on the Para-X Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Merry meet everybody, and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Tonight my guest is Monica Bodirsky, and she's got a new tarot deck called the Awakening Tarot. Monica is an artist, an author, and professional consultant whose specialty is tarot. Her art and writing empower individuals by building bridges to unseen realms where connections to self, ancestral wisdom, and the environment are cultivated. She's the creator of several tarot decks, including the best-selling Shadowland Tarot, and she's the founder of Witchfest, North Arts and Cultural Festival, and is an advocate of community and capacity building, and a sought-after speaker at several annual international metaphysical and divination conferences. With a bachelor's degree in design, she taught at OCAD University for 10 years and currently holds multidisciplinary art and spirituality residencies in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. If you're in the Para-X chat room, feel free to comment and ask Monica questions. And if you'd like to join us in chat, we're at paraxradionetwork.com. Hi, Monica. It's nice to have you back because all of your decks are so wonderfully unique. So what inspired you to create the Awakening Tarot?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit different. I was inspired from an art residency that I offer every year at Toronto Island. It's a week. Sometimes I've had it for a couple of weeks, and it's a very immersive and intense getaway for artists who also identify as earth-based spiritual practitioners or witches or Wiccans or pagans. There's a long list there. It's certainly alternative spirituality. And I just thought, after a few years, people were requesting something to accompany. And I do have a program and I do have a syllabus because I taught at university. But I thought, I think having cards as prompts and using that kind of imagery, and by that kind of imagery, I mean teaching in the framework of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, the 5 elements of witchcraft, as I like to refer to them as. I think that just gives us a very different perspective, and tarot seemed like a natural extension of that because, as you know, they're already they're the elements. I mean, wands is fire, pentacles or coins is earth, and so on. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I'm going to put all of that dynamic of becoming the elements and interacting with art and spirituality together in one package. I was really inspired to give that a try.
Mm. And as always, I get so enthralled with your artwork. The back of the cards are gorgeous, and there are several that I'd love to frame and hang up. The Integrity Owl and the 9 of Air with the bees. I love the bees. So, I mean, it's a tarot deck and what else, but it's also something that it's really easy on the eyes. Your stuff is really, really good.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so let's explain the elemental approach to this deck. Because somebody's going to scratch your head and say, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. The minor arcana is set out in earth, air, fire, and water, or pentacles, swords, wands, and cups, which is the standard Waite-Smith approach. And I decided to create the major arcana as, well, the element of spirit. And the idea behind that is when you understand the teachings of each of these elements, it gives you a lot of information about yourself, your subconscious, and also about spirits. As you know, a lot of people do follow the idea of as inside, as outside, as above, so below. And it's an integration. And you're not just looking at or observing these elements. You are becoming, you're really understanding what that means. So with the element of earth, you're understanding security and grounding and your physical needs. The element of air and swords is perception and communication. And the element of fire is about your passion and your energy. And the element of water is about motions and deep dives, but not just that, literally about the earth, air, fire, and water, where we live in our environment. I really feel strongly that once we connect to our environment and ourselves, we are looking after and become proper stewards of the earth and the environment. Goodness knows it needs our help right now. We've done a lot of damage. And also gives us insights into our own practices and our creative practices. It's a form of integration as shadow work is. So while I did a lot of shadow work with the Shadowland Tarot, I just see this as a continuation and an extension, because now you are moving from your subconscious outward to still yourself, but also the environment, and integrating the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the cards are not exactly, the prince and the princess and the hangman and everything. But I noticed that the first card of the major arcana is similar to the Fool, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. They're equivalents. And what I did to ensure that you could still read the cards if you're familiar with the Waite-Smith system is they are the key words for each of these standard major arcana. So the Seeker is the Fool. Manifestation is the Magician. That is, in essence, what the Magician does, is manifesting through all of the elements coming together. So they're alternative names, but they still hold the same meaning and context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the deck is not just good for divination, but it's also for self-development and assessing hidden realms. You want to talk about that a little bit, because that sounds exciting.
Yeah, I've always found cartomancy, that's just sort of the way I am naturally intuitive, and I've always used divination and cartomancy in particular as a means to access the spirit realm. And it, to me, acts as a portal, and for many people that I've spoken to. So if you are grounded and you're comfortable with that practice and you feel protected, I know, I'm not one to suggest people kick open the doors and just dive in without any kind of thought, because you can find some interesting energies that aren't always what I would call user-friendly. So you can, though, access those realms. I do a lot of ancestral work that way, and reaching out to ancestors for particular information through the cards. And I know when I'm talking to, say my parents who've both passed, I know because the cards that come up are not cards I would ever pick for myself. And they are very much in their own voice. And I can tell the difference between my own projecting or desire to hear them and when they're coming through, because this has been part of my practice for many decades. So you can use it for ancestral work. Some people want to contact their spirit guides this way. However you practice, that is possible. I would caution that just like a Ouija board, you don't want to just sort of shout into the void and see who answers. I would be, because golly, some of the strangest things answer, and then you'll have to call me to get rid of them. And I would just say exercise a little discretion there when you're doing that. Have a purpose in mind, have a destination, if you will, particular spirits that you would like to contact. And also about inner work. I mean, in this deck, I've still included shadow in the advice portion. It's not just advice. I also included reverse, which is unlike me, but I wanted, to give people more options and flexibility. So for inner work, you don't have to do this for any prophetic, what's going to happen. That's a whole nother discussion about free will and destiny. But for your own inner work, you can use these cards to reflect. And there are reflection questions that go with each card, so you can journal and think a little bit about how you feel about some of the things that come up with each of the cards.
We have to think, and that's a good thing. It makes people think. And there's so much, there's just so much difference to that deck as opposed to somebody's picking up any of the other decks. Wait a minute, somebody's looking in the chat room. Oh, bees are everywhere, pagan practice, even the Freemasons.
Oh yeah, bees are very spiritual, and there are bee covens. I mean, we refer to covens often as hives, but there are bee shamans in Europe. It's just a really interesting practice.
Yeah, and they're saying that, ecologically, you have to keep the bees going. And I know one came in the room the other day, and I had a hell of a time getting him out, but it was a little baby one. It got lost. And I finally got it out the door, and some people would take a fly swatter. So I was
I hear you.
And I'm doing it. I'm going, bee, don't bite me. Don't sting me, please. I'm trying to get you out of here.
Oh gosh, yeah, I've never been stung by a bee, and I will pick them up. They're in my face in the garden all the time. They have a wonderful temperament. The only things that don't generally are the wasps and hornets, but the bees, we have a pollinator garden, and the bees really enjoy it. I have rescued a few bees in the house. They need access to, any kind of sweet nectar, or they can die very quickly. And I had a bee sort of, keel over here in the house, and I got him some honey water, and he lapped it up, and then I let him go, and he flew away happy. We have bee rescue.
I know, we do things like that, but that's important, I was going to say bees are people too, but no, but they're living and breathing, and we need them, and that's good. Okay, so the guidebook, I was really amazed. It's very comprehensive. And, usually those little booklets that come with the cards are tiny little things, 40, 50 pages, tiny itsy-bitsy things. But you left no stone unturned. And the book is nearly 300 pages long. It's not a huge book, but it's not tiny. But with each card, you have the usual image description, keywords, the messages of the cards, advice for the upright cards and the reverses. But you also have the shadow and then reflective questions. Yeah. So let's elaborate a little bit on the reflection questions, the shadow questions, sorry.
The shadow. Yeah, frequently when I've taught or discussed shadow work with people, they kind of mistake it as the negative aspect of something. And I wanted to distinguish it from a reversal, which is also not necessarily a negative. It just is, for me, the opposite meaning of the upright. And the shadow aspect is the hidden thing. It's the thing that you might not be noticing that you're carrying in your subconscious, which is, Jung's actual definition of shadow. It's the thing that we are unaware of, and something that we're often embarrassed by or think is bad. Either we've been taught that by our families or by society in general. You can't be that way. That's not the right way. So that becomes the shadow. So I included that in every card just to say, take a look at this if you are into shadow work. You don't necessarily need to use that if you want to use the cards. But again, I think it's an added aspect. So it gives you another option.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just opening the book right now, and it's so new, it's hard to open. But, you also, when you're talking about reflection questions, I'm trying to see which card this is because I just kind of opened it at random. I guess it's about the Earth card. And, some of the questions that you have here, it's like, what do you see as your current material legacy? What would you like to donate or leave others when you finish your Earth walk? Where do you feel your lifestyle has made the biggest impact, positive, negative, and something about the environment? But there's like 5 questions like this that makes you stop and think. You're just not doing something very superficial. You're really delving in to people and getting us to think, and I think that's really good. Where did that idea come from?
Oh, thank you. That is a fairly common thing if you're teaching at a university or college, or I'm sure even in high school, that you want to encourage critical thought and encourage people to consider their own thoughts and opinions on subjects. And in that way, it not only becomes deeper, but it isn't me telling you this is what it is. You have the opportunity to decide for yourself. And I like doing that because it becomes collaborative. It means that you're also have your own meaning for each of the cards. And this is where journaling and tarot journaling comes in really handy. It just offers another dimension and I think personalizes it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really interesting because, and it's questions that are not so easy to think about. You can't stick it out of the top of your head. You're going to have to think about the answer and then even maybe question yourself before you really find the real answer.
Yeah, that is the point for sure. And, it's fine too if some people go, I did not get a deck to have homework. Hey, that's all cool. You don't have to if you don't want to. I just think I appreciated it when I've read reflection questions on certain topics, because I do like to think about how I feel about things rather than just, be told what something means as well. So I hope it adds that other dimension for folks. But like I said, if it's not something of interest, again, you don't need to. Or you can quiz your friends when you have your tarot get-togethers.
That's even better. Yeah. Truth or thought or not. All right. Somebody from the chat room just bought your deck. There you go.
Well, thank you for the support.
See, it's easy. All right. So you talk. Lots of readers have little rituals before they do their readings, and you list the steps that you take before doing a reading. But you also wrote about cleansing and spiritual hygiene as well. And let's add to that what make it inclusive. Because, some people take baths or whatever. So what's your ritual? And then let's talk about this spiritual cleansing and hygiene.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to have your own space and create a time and space specifically for a reading. Not just for the cards and that you're opening a portal spiritually, but you need a little privacy, I think, and a little peace and quiet. There's nothing wrong. I get it. A lot of people will, whip out their decks in front of, the latest Netflix show. I get it, and flip over a card or two. But I think you get a lot more out of it if you take the time to cleanse your space, spiritually, perhaps cleanse yourself. I do. If I'm doing an important, and by important, I mean a very in-depth reading, or even for, lesser, quicker readings, but for clients, I feel like it's really important to be in the right energetic space, not just headspace, because I'm integrating my intuition with what I've learned about tarot over many decades. So you're kind of engaging your left and your right brain, the logical with the creative and intuitive. So I take the time to, make sure I'm well hydrated, make sure the area is physically clean, vacuumed and dusted, and that things are put away, that I have done either sound or potentially incense or smoke cleansing. There are many ways you can cleanse your space. Sound is a very good way to cleanse certain energies and make sure that, you've got your time and space alone without any other spirits hanging around. And this may not be for everybody. I'm just one of those people who has also been part of like haunted houses and the paranormal. So I'm very cautious when it comes to those external entities you may not want in your space. And I use scent too. I have essential oils. I have those on my hands so that they are part of my deck. So my deck will have a certain scent. Feel free to make fun of me because it often smells like patchouli. I'm so old. And,
oh my God, I love patchouli. And ask anybody. I'm there with you. Yeah, okay.
I know so many younger people who cannot stand the smell of patchouli.
Oh God, I love it.
But that is another cleansing for me, and it is sacred. And I always light a candle, and I always sit down and breathe deeply, and I ground. I have my feet on the ground, and I make sure I'm centered. I call in my ancestors, and I always ask when I do readings for people that I give them what they need to hear in a very kind and diplomatic way, not what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. So, because sometimes I know we might accidentally start, projecting or giving people logical, practical answers to things that are not coming from that spiritual space necessarily. So that pretty much summarizes it before I start, and I shuffle very simply. I'm not a riffle shuffler. For those who know what that is, who hang out at casinos, I am not a croupier. I just kind of do the hand over hand, old school European shuffle and cut the deck in three, and then start to pull cards in a certain sequence without necessarily a spread.
You mentioned cutting in three, and I don't know where I got that, but I do that too. But do you know the origin of that?
I don't. And you know what the funny thing is? I like to give credit where credit is due. I've read so many books and I've had so many teachers. But you know what? That is the one thing I was not taught. I just thought it, maybe it's just because of the law of threes, and threes are just a very sacred thing to our practice. But I just thought cutting in three would be a good idea. And then I pull cards in groups of three.
Me too.
Well, see? I think it's just, we're just clicked into something there, because that wasn't actually something I was taught. I don't know where it originated.
I didn't ever look up the number three in numerology, but I just, I have to do it. And as I said, do one, but then piles of threes too, and then it's crazy, but it works. That's all that matters.
It does. Right? Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. We've got one more question before we're going to have to go to break. While I was looking through the book, I saw a section about how to create a travel kit to take it with you when you travel. And coincidentally, I have a chapter in my new grimoire written by a good friend of mine, and that's devoted to creating a travel bag for her tools for spell casting. And I had never thought about that before, and now so she did it, helped me with the book, and then you're doing it too. So I guess I didn't think that you would take things with you, but yeah, you do. So generally, what do you pack in your travel bag?
Yeah, that's interesting. Depending on what borders I'm crossing, that might change. Yeah, that was another discussion from last deck. But I usually, if I can, I will take my own little votive candle. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
or a small tin candle, even though a lot of hotels won't let you actually light something. I can do that outside as well. And I
Mm-hmm.
will make sure I have my own matches. I don't take lighters because those are not good on planes often.
Mm-hmm.
And I cover the elements. So I do always have rocks somewhere in my bags or my pockets. I feel so sorry for customs sometimes. And the things they pull out of my bags are really like kind of crowd stopping at times. And I like to take a little resin incense, even if I just put a little bit in my candle, even if I'm not doing the whole charcoal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have, I take a vial. I don't necessarily take any water, but I often travel there during a full moon, or it just happens when I'm traveling. So I will charge a small vial of water with, the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that represents my spirit or ancestral help, like certain necklaces that have been gifted to me, and those are part of the spirit element. I have a small reading cloth. Just makes me feel comfortable to put my cards on a small charged cloth. I guess I'm a little
Mm-hmm.
sensitive that way. And always a bag, and of course the cards. And I have an extra deck and all of these things packed and ready to go. It's not like I'm expecting a disaster. It's just that I tend to forget these things when I'm traveling. So for me, it's good to have a little go bag for tarot and oracles. And sometimes I'll swap it out for different decks that I've created. But for the most part, those are the items that I include.
Yeah, my friend has, it's not like a carpet bag, it's smaller, but she had it made with different pockets and things to put in there. And she started pulling things out, and it's like, clowns coming out of a car, She had everything. She had wands, she had mortar and pestle, but, they're all small. But anything that you can think of for spell casting, she takes with her. And she just sent me a bag. I haven't looked at everything in there yet, and it's quite much smaller than hers. But I was amazing because I was sitting there watching, and she kept pulling things out, and they were spread all over the table. There was, a little Ouija thing, not a Ouija thing. When you're doing the pentagram, and you just have that
little pendulum, yeah.
It has the ABC thing on, and whatever.
Yeah.
So she had that. It was amazing because she's a water witch, and so she had like little things from the ocean, little seashells and little things that they found, and it was just amazing. Salt water, of course. But I never thought about that, and I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, and even if you can't necessarily take things with you, I just want to say that if you go to your local shop, you can for wherever you're traveling, most places have little birthday candles, so you can always find a candle.
Yeah, those are the easy ones to do for sure. It's just a good idea, and I maybe a lot of people do that, and I just wasn't aware of it. But when she was telling me about her larder, her travel larder, I said, "Oh, I'm doing this book. You want to talk about that? That's really important and something new." And then all of a sudden I read it and you did the same thing. And I'm thinking, maybe I'm not in the loop. It could be. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in about 2 minutes. So everybody hang.
There's more Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks right after these important messages.
If you're looking for a truly unique podcast experience, we have you covered. Spirit by You with CJ Dunham airs live from the Third Coast in Southeast Texas on Tuesday and Fridays at midnight Eastern Time, covering Creole folklore and folk magic to strange paranormal activity to new equipment for the field. CJ Dunham is a Catholic swamp witch, a devotee to our Mother Mary and the Trinity, a true believer in our Lord, the Holy Ghost, and Christ. Peace be with your spirit, and the spirits by you.
Hi, it's Tori DeVito. In every family, small conversations can make a big impact. Like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic. Your honesty about that part of your life gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted to uphold in my own life.
I wanted you to know, from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now, that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs. I said it a lot, and I'm glad you took it to heart.
Talk, they hear you. For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Hi, this is Marla with some exciting news about Stirring the Cauldron. Starting on April 25th, and then on the last Thursday of every month, I'm turning Stirring the Cauldron into a virtual classroom. Each masterclass will be taught by the cleverest of professors, and they'll be teaching on a variety of subjects. There's no tuition fee or any detention after class, and you won't get sent to the headmaster's office either, not for any reason. So conjure up a notebook, sharpen your quills, and become a student once again. Classes begin at 9 p.m. Eastern, so I'll see you then. Oh, and try not to be late. The school elf loves to give out tardy slips.
Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
And we're here with Monica Bodirsky, and we're talking about her Awakening Tarot. And I've got a question from the chat room. Cece wants to know, for having multiple decks, where and how do you store them? Mine are in my cupboard box, in cardboard boxes in the cedar chest.
Oh, okay, sure. Wow, I have mine in the living room on the bookshelf. I have quite a few decks. Some of them are stored in a wooden, it's sort of like a little wooden shelf that I have as well. But cedar chest is a wonderful thing. I think just making sure you air out your cards every now and then, because they can get a little, if they're at all in a damp environment, that can be a bit problematic. They'll start to, get a little mildewy. But in a cardboard box, in a cedar chest sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and I've got mine, somebody said, in a nice little velvet pouch, and then I have some crystals in there. And they said that's kind of helping to keep them clean and charged up. So, but I guess whatever works.
I do. My active decks, I have about 3 or 4 active decks that are in their own bags, and they're out. The ones that I'm not in storage, the ones that I'm actively using, for sure, I keep them in a nice pouch as well, with a few crystals.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you have to have crystals. I mean,
Yeah.
That's the way it works. Let's talk about some spreads. Because you've answered some of the questions that I was already going to ask, so I'm jumping around all of here to see what we haven't covered yet. But the spreads are, different than basic spreads, aren't they?
I try to be creative with them and make sure that they relate to the deck. So rather than just following a standard Celtic cross or some of the more common ones, I created spreads that were fire energy and the air element and a shadow, the earth element, which is a shadow spread, and a water spread. So I just wanted them to reflect the deck and the contents of the book.
Mm-hmm. And, I guess people do also make their own, and that's perfectly right? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I always suggest to people, give spreads a try. Don't necessarily dismiss them, but if you find that they're just not resonating, and you have your own kind of a spread you'd like to try, or even just single card pulls, by all means, people should make it their own, and they should do it. It really makes them comfortable. As someone who's taught, I've always told students, and I mentored a coven for a long time, that, give it a try first. Don't give up before even attempting, because often things will look like a little daunting, or people just think that they're going to do it wrong, and that can cause them to not want to try. But give it a try first. But if you find that it's not to your liking, by all means, make your own spreads, add cards, take away cards. You can build on the spreads that I've offered. They're not, carved in stone. These are suggestions, and they're meant to be helpful and help you get to the answers that you're looking for. But creativity comes first, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's it. And, it's like, don't read it don't do it if it doesn't resonate,
Absolutely.
And yeah. Now, we were talking a little bit about the ancestors and deities and the spirit guides. How do you use the deck to get into talking to them, or bringing in, or whatever?
Well, I usually start with the idea that this is a conversation and there is reciprocity, and I wouldn't just have, I wouldn't just start without inviting people in that I'd like to speak with, and I will give them a cup of coffee or a food offering that I know that they would like, as though I were sitting down to talk to them, and then start the conversation and ask questions of them after I give them offerings and see how they're doing. And then I do have pictures of the people I'm contacting as well. And then I'll turn over the cards. I'll ask a question and say, I think I know the answer. I pretty much know what you would say right now, Ma, but what would you do in this particular situation? I'd like a little advice. And, then I'll turn over a card or two and ask questions if I need to for clarity. This is my usual caution, though. Try not to flip over, 77 cards for confirmation. Just trust yourself. Try not to go past 2 or 3, and just sit with those. And when I do, what happens is it shifts for me from looking at the imagery, which is like that entrance, that portal. It shifts into, I can hear my mom's voice, and then I can hear her start to expand on those cards. So it is like a point of entry. And sometimes I've closed my eyes, I've turned over a card, and I hear her saying things. And when I've looked at the card, that is exactly the meaning of the card. Sometimes being a little skeptical is a very wise thing. So I have these little checks and balances to ensure that I'm connecting.
Yeah, I think it's talking to them, actually. It's not like a spread, but the cards are going to help a lot. Yeah. There was another, I was going to try to pull one for myself, but as I was shuffling, a card flew out of it. Now, I was taught when that happens, don't put it back in the deck and keep shuffling. That's the card you need to see. Do you agree with that?
I do. I've often put that aside, depending on how it's fallen too, and I'll put it on top of the table, like beginning of the spread, and then I'll do my usual shuffling and cutting the deck, and then my 3 cards. And I find that first card does have a significant role in what it is I'm asking. It is giving an additional context. So yeah, I do think it's important. I think it's also important, though, I do see some people who are on YouTube and TikTok and others who purposely shuffle to flip cards out as though they're jumping out on their own. And it's like, okay, come on now. There's a difference between doing that and accidentally having a card fall out or jump out of the deck. So, yeah, I do think they're important.
Yeah. So the first card, and it was so funny because the first card, it was a one-card draw. I got the Seeker, right at the beginning. So it was telling me, okay, now, here we go. We're going to be an adventure, and we're going to get to know each other, but here's the Seeker. So that kind of made me laugh a little bit.
Very nice, yeah.
Yeah. So how does one begin living a magical and awakening life?
I think the first thing is to slow down a little bit, which horrifies a lot of people, especially those living in large cities like me, to actually slow down enough to, just like in Eastern philosophies, live in the moment. And I think that's really important, regardless of your particular spiritual practice. Slowing down enough to notice what's going on in your environment as far as signs. Are there particular birds? Do those birds come around frequently? And if they do, what kind of birds are they? When are they showing up? What is the message? There might be different animals in your environment. Even though I live in a big urban center, we have coyotes and raccoons and rabbits, which the coyotes love to eat, and all sorts of, it's a real kind of a wildlife in the city. And every animal, I believe, and tree has a message. And while I can't walk around looking at everything and stumbling because I'm just reading messages, there are things that kind of jump out. And to be awake is to not think about, what's going to happen when you get to work, but walking in the moment and noticing your environment. And what kind of trees? Did you hear a bird? Like I said, what kind of bird? Do you think that's telling you something? At the end of the day, if you think back on it, you might see that bird in context of what happened, and you'll start to see patterns over time. And that is kind of an awakening. It's becoming one with your environment, one with yourself. You become integrated. I remember being part of a community here in the city, and I had this issue of invisibility for a while. And I don't mean it was a self-esteem problem. I mean that people genuinely didn't seem to see me. Like I would walk into work past the receptionist and say hello, and she would tell people I hadn't gotten there yet. Like this happened. I would go to those, doors that sense your presence, and the door wouldn't sense my presence, and I'd walk into it. It wouldn't open, and other people would walk past me and the doors would open. I'm going, what is going on? And somebody who was very spiritually attuned and wide awake said, Monica, you've become so part of your environment. It's like your molecules have pretty much melted into the space. And you're going to have to, be very conscious to make sure that you're present and grounded. She also suggested I carry a few rocks in my pocket so I can stay grounded. So I think noticing your body, being in your mind, as well as the environment and connected is what awakening is. And I think that we can have several awakenings throughout our lives because every day we learn things. Every day we have different experiences that will shape our reality. And there can be new awakenings constantly. Every time you learn something, you're probably a little bit more awake. So I know it can be a very ambiguous term, but I think it's very synonymous with awareness.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you if you would, and you can say no. Could you pull a card for a couple of people in the chat room? We have some time.
Sure. For sure we can. I've got them right here.
Oh, good. All right, so anybody in the chat room, send me a wave at me and say, yeah, I want a reading, and we'll do that. But yeah, because it's so different and so fresh, and other than the usual. Okay, well here we go. But I was looking too about the artwork, and I keep going. Got to do that. But how do you see the cards when you when you're thinking about, okay, we need to do the earth, the seeker, whatever, where does that come from?
Yeah, the idea came from me stopping to think, how am I going to integrate elements with people and be inclusive as well? And I have these really, I'm sure some people have seen them. They're called charlottes. They're really old porcelain dolls from the 1800s, and they're tiny. They're these tiny little unpainted porcelain dolls, and they're very kind of androgynous. And I was looking at one, and I thought, well, this is kind of perfect. There's no particular hair or gender, and this is just representing being as opposed to a specific person or group. And integrating with the element, they've become anthropomorphized, or they've become part of that. So, the release card has got the death's head moth and, human being legs. And I just started to think, how could I put these together? Through the color palette, the fire or the warm colors, that was, I jotted that down, and the key words to each card, of course, and then just how is this going to be integrated? Are they going to be part of this? And you might notice in some of the imagery, you'll see these beings are kind of crumbling a little bit, and that is because they're allowing their old selves to disintegrate a little bit, become part of the environment, and become part of that element and learn about it. And the court cards are also, you'll notice they're not quite that element, they're observing. So, the initiate, which is the page, is just learning about the fire. The voyager is traveling with the fire, which is the night equivalent. The artist is creatively interpreting that fire. And then the visionary has become that fire, become one with it to see a better future. So those were all the parameters, and I often do that before I begin. I'll jot down all of those things. I do a lot of sketching to work out the palette and to make sure that the cards are cohesive, that they all have kind of a similar look, because that you can really stray after 77 cards. They could look like they were created by 10 different people if you're not careful.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so those are all the things that I keep in mind.
Okay, we've got some takers. So let's, Kathy wants one.
Okay. All right. Let's see what we've got here. Kathy. Let me see. I've turned over the 2 of Earth. Okay. That is the equivalent of the 2 of Pentacles, which is about balance. So what is going on with you right now is this need to balance your resources, and those can be physical. Generally, they are both about your well-being and also about finances. And the message is that you might need to focus to retain balance of your resources at the moment. I don't know if you're undergoing any kind of particular stress, and you may be managing to balance. The issue with the 2 of Earth is that it can be kind of a delicate situation, and you may feel perpetually that you need to juggle things, and that might not be so sustainable. So you might want to take a look at cash flow and your physical well-being, keep a calendar or make notes rather than just having email or text reminders. For some reason, calendars and writing, which is a little more, of a slow meditative act, might help. And make sure that you're not draining yourself physically trying to keep up with too many projects, okay? So well-being comes first. And equilibrium. I hope that was helpful.
Okay, I'm sure it will be. And another one for Dinah.
Okay, reshuffling here for Dinah. And I do reshuffle for different folks. Some people don't.
They don't?
I know. They don't actually. I know. And I'm thinking, whoa, you're just continuing your reading, but,
Yeah.
Okay, so Dinah, I have the Artist of Fire for you. And that is the equivalent of the Queen of Wands, okay? And this is about expertise and proficiency, artistry, and your enthusiasm, which apparently is integrated into your current situation. You might need a little patience right now. The process you require to complete the project, it may take a bit longer than you think, but the outcome will be successful for whatever it is you're working on right now, I'm quite sure. You seem to have a gift. This is the Artist of Fire. You seem to have kind of a gift for combining different approaches to resolve complex issues, and you want to use that right now. So call on those abilities and stay focused. Use both your creative and your practical skills. Bringing both of those together will definitely give you a successful outcome here. We all can benefit, I think, from getting out of our heads and into our hands. That's an expression that we used to use at OCAD University, which is an art and design university. So, I think making something, any kind of crafting and creating, is the way to go right now. You might even have some kind of physical outlet that will assist you at the moment. Okay? So I hope that was helpful, Dinah.
Okay. And I do have a question that...
Yeah.
Where is it? Okay. She wants to know, is there ever a wrong reading of the cards, like open-ended versus closed-ended readings?
Would that be in reference to the question? Because there are certain questions that will give you a better reading, and the questions are vital, I think. I steer clear of closed conversations like yes or no, because I believe very much in free will and destiny. So you can adjust your own destiny. You can choose your own path, and along that path, I believe there are things that are kind of inevitable. This is my view of the combination of both. So what I would suggest is when you do a reading or you get a reading, it's helpful for people to say, okay, if you choose to do this and take this job, this is the likely outcome. If you choose not to take this job and pursue this alternate path, this is the likely outcome. Frequently, you can look at those and go, well, I'm weighing both sides. They seem about the same. Yeah, that happens. In which case, if there isn't one that is blatantly better than the other, then yes, you just have the choice. Then you can decide what it is that you want to do. I always encourage people to take those steps because I want people to feel empowered, not reliant on readings. So I don't know if in that I answered your question. Let me know if that was close to what you were looking for.
Okay. I know what we're looking for, and that's that time is kind of running out. Let me see. She just wrote something else. She said, like, if an image is only ever one reading ever, or can it mean many things depending on the person?
Oh, absolutely. Well, this is where learning about tarot and intuition come in. And context is vital. So I never just pull a single card for somebody. So if that card is in a group of three, the context of that those three cards will change the meaning. And there are so many layers to each card. They definitely will change from person to person. The same basic meaning holds true, but as I said, the context is different.
Okay. All right, so we're running out of time, and so this is a good time for you to give out your website information and tell everybody what's on there, because there's a lot of goodies to see.
Well, for sure. My website is my name. If you can spell Monica, Monica, Bodirsky, BODIRSKY.com, you will end up on my Hello landing page. And I talk a little bit about the new tarot deck and also about the annual residency that I have coming up. The deadline is fast approaching. If you are interested in joining that residency, you have until Monday to apply. That jot form application is on one of my pages, so you can just submit that. I also have event listings, and I have my other decks, information about them as well. I have a few prints in the shop and a couple of self-published decks as well in my shop. I'm easy to reach if anyone ever wants to email me. I'm at monica.bodirsky@gmail.com. I'm also on Instagram at, rather cryptically, Monica Bodirsky. So as long as you get the spelling right, because there aren't a whole lot of me, and people who share that name, you will find me fairly easily.
All right. Well, I thank you for making a really good deck, and I'm enjoying it. I'm just at the very beginning. I've got a lot to do with it, but we'll get acquainted very quickly. And so, as always, it's nice to have you back with us, and I'm sure that we're going to be seeing you again, because you're always busy doing something new, right?
I am. And, I want to thank you very much, Marla, for having me as a guest. I always love chatting with you, and I hope sometime we can sit down and have a cup of coffee and pull out our cards together.
That'll work. All right. And as always, we have to thank everybody for listening in as well. And until next time, everybody, blessed be, and merry meet again. Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Please join us again next week at the same time for another great guest and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2024. The Mysterioso March by Kevin MacLeod is licensed through Incompetech.com.